Hello everyone, we're going to talk about the upcoming RTX 5090 and all the things you should know about the 50 series that we know of at the moment. Let's get into it. So the RTX 5090 is going to be released fairly soon, sometime either early next year in 2025 or mid next year. There's a lot to talk about with the 5090 coming up because there is a big difference towards the 4090, several that I will explain very shortly. So if you're interested in grabbing one of these cards, leave a comment down below and let me know if you'll actually be purchasing this upcoming beast or what loan you're going to be putting out for it, because this thing is going to be possibly priced ridiculously. So the RTX 5090, so it's supposed to be launched sometime between early 2025 and mid 2025 next year. So it's approaching pretty quickly as we're entering the end of 2024. Now the 5090 doesn't really interest me as much as all the other 50 series GPUs that will be released because, let's be honest, it's really just a GPU that is for people that are willing to spend the kind of money that the 4090 is, and I'm willing to bet that the 5090 is probably going to be somewhere in the mid to maybe even high 2000s, but we never know. So the 5090 specs are quite impressive, as you'll see right now. Starting off with the shader cores, there's 21,760 shader cores. There's going to be 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 video memory, and it's going to be built upon a 512-bit bus, which is quite the upgrade from the 4090, which had 16,384 shader cores and had 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory built upon a 384-bit bus. So definitely you're seeing right off the bat the upgrade with the RTX 5090 over the 4090. So as of right now, the clock speeds for the 4090 and the 5090 are the same. The memory clock for the 5090 is supposed to be 2,500 megahertz comparative to the 1,313 megahertz on the 4090. So I don't know if that's really official, if there hasn't really been any information about that out yet. That's just what I'm seeing on the Tech Power Up page. So if anyone has any further information on that, leave that down in the comments below. So I think it's safe to say that the RTX 5090 is going to be quite the beast, and I think it's no surprise with NVIDIA having a huge push with AI, they're going to want to really outdo themselves and keep progressing their graphics cards further and further along, at least the high-end models. Now, if we move on to the 5080, now moving on to the 5080, we're going to see, like I said, a different picture. The 5080 is not really the huge jump that I think everyone is expecting it to be, unless the Blackwell 2.0 architecture is just absolutely kills Ada Lake. So with the 5080 specs, we're going to have a total of 10,752 shader cores with 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory, built upon a 256-bit bus. Comparing that to the 4080, there is a total of 9,728 shader cores, 16 gigabytes of GDDR6X, and built upon a 256-bit memory bus. So you can see, at least on the spec side, there isn't a whole lot more coming to the 5080 comparative to the 4080. Now again, we will see how well Blackwell 2.0 architecture will be, at least for gaming and workloads in general. It's fair to say that the 5080 is going to be faster than the 4080, but how much faster, we'll have to wait and see. And the 5080, in my opinion, means more than the 5090. Not a lot of people are going to get their hands on a 5090. More will get their hands on a 5080. Again, with the pricing of a 5080, I'm willing to speculate, knowing how NVIDIA has recently been doing with all their launches, that the 5080 is going to be more than the 4080 at launch, just because the way NVIDIA is. Looking at the clock speeds of these two, you can tell there's a little bit of a bump speculated here on the 5080. Hopefully it is more when we get closer to launch. But right now we have the 4080 at a base clock of 2,205 and the 5080 at a base clock of 2,235. So the base clock obviously is higher on this. But then if we get to the boost, the 2,505 megahertz for the boost clock on the 4080, and then the 5080 has a boost clock of 2,520, so not much more of a boost clock, a better base clock on the 5080, which is pretty impressive The memory clock for the 5080 is supposed to be 2500 megahertz, which is a huge spike comparative to the 1400 megahertz memory clock of the 4080. So it will be interesting to see how that pans out. Again, none of this is really official at the moment. We'll see if at launch these numbers change, but definitely a huge boost on the memory clock for the 5080. So now that I've shown you guys the specs and what is rumored to be for the 5090 and 5080, let's get into a little bit of speculation as for the rest of the 50 series. And if I'm being honest, the way things have been going with NVIDIA, I'm not too excited for it. Seeing that they're hyping up the 5090 so much as they are, and everyone in the media is that it truly is going to be quite the improvement from the 4090. I have no doubt about it, and I think anyone on the internet doesn't have a doubt about that. Now, I'm more concerned about the family of the rest of the 50 series graphics cards, as for most people, they're going to get their hands on a 5070 or 5060 when that gets released down the line. And are we really going to see the improvement from the 40 series? If we're going on the track record of the 40 series graphics cards, the 4060 and the 4070 were kind of lackluster. They were not really impressive compared to their 30 series counterparts for the price for performance, especially the 4060. When the 4060 was released, it was released with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 3060 was released with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So it was kind of weird that we were having a downgrade, and then we weren't seeing any of the performance gains for buying a brand new GPU. It wasn't something that was really compelling to pay for. That's why a lot of these 4060s are still sitting on shelves. I was at Best Buy the other day, and let me tell you, I saw a lot of 4060s sitting in their GPU cabinet alongside 4070s and 4080s. People really just weren't buying the 40 series graphics cards, and I wasn't either. Will this change with the 50 series graphics cards? Well, I think it really depends on the performance that we're going to see out of the lower end 50 series graphics cards. Again, NVIDIA is pushing really hard on the AI aspect of their business, and that means that they're going to really be paying more attention to their higher end GPUs like the 5090 and the 5080. With that said, are they going to have a huge improvement on the 5060 and 5070 when they do release that in the future? I'm going to speculate that the performance is going to be better than the 40 series, as we can kind of see a trend with NVIDIA where you have a big leap in one generation and then kind of a lackluster generation in between. For instance, with the 10 series, we had a great leap. The 10 series graphics cards were amazing. Then we had the 20 series, which was kind of like, what's the reason for the 20 series? It's just the 10 series with, really bad ray tracing. Then the 30 series came out and blew everyone away. The 30 series graphics cards being some of the most popular graphics cards still to this day. And then the 40 series released, and other than the 4090, everyone kind of just wasn't impressed with, the 4060, 4070, and 4080. Now we're coming into that next generation, the 50 series, and if we're going off of history, the 50 series is going to be quite impressive. Is it going to be? I hope so. I can't say for certain, but looking at the specs of the 5090 and 5080, it looks quite impressive. So hopefully they'll perform a lot better than their 40 series counterpart. But then there also is the price discussion. And the price is really big for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't going to get their hands on a 5090 or a 5080 because they're going to be very expensive. With that said, is the lower end 50 series GPUs going to be cheap or anywhere near the same price as the 30 or 40 series? People were really upset with the 4060 being more expensive than the 3060 when it was released, and arguably being the same GPU with less VRAM. So are we going to see that same lack of price for performance on the 5060 and 5070? We'll have to wait and see. Am I hopeful that it's going to be better? I'm going to hope for the best and say that the 5060 and the 5070 are going to be impressive, and hopefully they'll be priced correctly for what they perform. But you also have to have that little voice in your back of your head saying this is NVIDIA, and they're possibly not going to do that, and they're just going to price it ridiculously and basically wait for everyone to either not to buy them and lower the prices. That's the reality we live in, is we can now see with the 40 series, the 4070 used to cost $900, and now it's dropped all the way into the $600 and mid $500. So there has definitely been quite the price drop from launch. So hopefully NVIDIA learned from that, but they don't always do that. So we'll see what happens with the 50 series graphics cards as we go later on, and I will make videos continuing on with the information. This is a newer style of video format for me, so if you guys like the informational videos, leave a like, comment, and let me know how well I did. And with that said, guys, consider subscribing. I'm Nick, I'm the GPU enthusiast, and I hope y'all have a great day.